The following program is made possible by the friends and partners of Creation Today. Welcome to the Creation Today show, where we bring together interviews with experts and solid Bible teaching. Your host, Eric Hovind, affirms the ultimate authority of God's Word, the truth of creation, and why it matters to you.
I have a question for you. Is science getting closer to solving the origin of life problem? Or is science showing that the hypothesis of life starting all by itself, by accident, is an absurd hypothesis? Is believing that life came from non-life now an archaic, antiquated, non-scientific concept? You know, for years, we've been told that science is getting closer. Just one more experiment, one more breakthrough, another headline announcing that we're just one step nearer to explaining how life began. But what if their explanations and their experiments aren't steps that lead to the origin of life at all? You see, before evolution could even take place, you got to be able to explain, well, before evolution can explain the diversity of life, you first have to explain the existence of life, the origin of life. Otherwise, it's like arguing over transitional forms when there's not even a known mechanism that can change from one kind of animal into another kind of an animal. Like, let's get that mechanism before we decide, well, did this transition and is this a transitional form? Now, this is not about, birds, dinosaurs, or fish. It's just about a living cell. And that's where things get very, very interesting. Every pathway, every proposed step in this, supposed process requires another pathway before it even begins. Things like information, molecular machines, energy systems, cell membranes, reproduction. Every solution depends on another unsolved problem that's not solved yet. So are evolutionists really creating a stairway to explain the origin of life, or are they just describing the stairway that they wished somehow existed? Hey, welcome to the Creation Today show, guys. I am Eric Hovind, and maybe you're a Christian who wants to grow in your faith. I'm glad you're here. If you're skeptical of Christianity altogether, I'm glad you're here. You can critique and help understand this a lot for us. Maybe you're simply curious and trying to figure out what is the truth. When there's experts on both sides, how do you know what the truth really is? Whatever it is and wherever you find yourself today, I'm really glad you're here. Now, this show is not about asking you to check your brain at the door. It's about following evidence, asking honest questions, and seeking the truth wherever it leads. So whether you're here to challenge what we believe or discover why we believe it, I'm really, really thankful that you're joining us today. Now, if something you hear today makes you stop and think, oh my goodness, that was good, do us a favor. Would you please hit the buttons that are there for you to share this or subscribe to the channel? Because when you share this with somebody else who's not afraid to wrestle with life's biggest questions, it helps them. Every like, every comment, and every share helps the conversation move forward, and it will help reach people that might not have been reached otherwise. Now, if you're joining us through one of our incredible broadcast partners, thank you for supporting their ministries and the television stations and broadcasters that make programs like this possible. So whether you just say a prayer for them today or send a check to them today or share the truth of them and what you watch with your friends, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for being part of a conversation like this and for joining our broadcasters around the world and supporting outreaches that make a difference. It is one thing to read headlines about the origin of life. It's another thing entirely to spend years digging into the actual chemistry, asking what the experiments are really showing, what they didn't show, and whether the evidence has been oversold. My guest today have done exactly that. They have spent years doing this. One spent her career as a chemist studying the very reactions that are often proposed to explain life's origin. The other, an engineer and research scientist, spent decades solving complex technical problems and knows what it takes for a system to actually work. Together, they decided to tackle one of science's biggest questions, not by arguing philosophy, not by repeating assumptions, but by following the evidence one step at a time. The result is a fascinating book called Stairway to Life, an origin of life reality check. An origin of life, the reality check. It examines every major hurdle between non-living chemistry and the first living cells, asking a simple question: has anyone actually demonstrated a pathway from non-life to life? Or are we still just dreaming that this happened? Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome my guests, Dr. Change Tan and Dr. Rob Stadler. Dr. Change, Dr. Stadler, thank you so much for joining me on the Creation Today show.
Thank you, Eric. Good to be here.
It is a pleasure.
Now, Dr. Change, you don't have an American accent.
No.
No. Tell us about where you're from.
China.
You are from China, but now you do live here in America.
I do, yes, in Missouri.
Okay. So your accent is not as strong as it used to be.
There is no recorded lectures from 30 years ago or 20 years ago. Maybe 20 years ago I do.
That's when you had the real accent. Okay, all right. Now, I'm curious, real quick, tell me, well, if each one of you, I just gave a highlight of your background because I really want to get into the data here of what you guys have discovered with the Stairway to Life concept. But if you could each tell me why you got into this why did you end up writing this book? Where were you versus where you're at now? So, Dr. Change, I'll start with you. You were in China, we got that, but where were you in your philosophy of life, and where are you at today? And very briefly, how'd that happen?
Yes, I spent about half of my life in China and half of my life in America. I was an atheist and evolutionist for most of my life. So even after I became a Christian in 2004, I still believed in evolution. In 2005, I was asked to teach molecular biology. It's when I was preparing my lectures for molecular biology, a course I had never taken myself because I was trained as a chemist in China. So my biology is wherever my research touches. When I was preparing for my lectures for molecular biology, I noticed that the machinery used by prokaryotes and eukaryotes are mostly unrelated in sequence. They are related in function, so they do the same thing, but totally unrelated genes are involved. That made me question about the idea, eukaryotes evolved from prokaryotes and later on into life from no life.
Wow. So you understood, you had been trained in the evolution, I'll call it story instead of theory, the evolution story, and then you started actually teaching it, and as you're studying teaching, you're going, hang on, the evidence that I see doesn't match the story.
True.
Wow. Okay. I love story. One day we just need to do a show or a conversation with you, an interview with you to hear about that transition, because I'm sure that in itself is exciting. Dr. Stadler, where were you compared to in the past compared to where you're at today?
Yeah, I unlike Change, I grew up as a Christian, but as is kind of common in the teenage years and young adult years, I found it more important to pursue my own interests, and so I kind of pushed God aside. And then in graduate school, I was in engineering graduate school, but it also involved time spent in medical school. And I was in the anatomy class doing a dissection of a cadaver, and just in awe of the machine and just in awe of the engineering of the machine. Not just you, Eric, but all people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, humanity, the human body.
Yes. Fantastic. And that really woke me up, and I was like, this is engineering. And so and moving on then from there to write this book, my strength, my faith in this all grows stronger and stronger as I see that science points to God.
Unbelievable. Okay, let's jump in because I've only got a few minutes with social media and I really want them to hear some of this. By the way, social media, the book, The Stairway to Life, you need to get this book and read this book, okay? Because we're not going to have time to cover it all. I just want to make sure you understand how important this is. You've heard the idea that creationists are just God of the gaps. We just believe, matter of fact, Kent, show the famous cartoon. There's a famous cartoon out there that is, hey, a miracle occurred right here. And the professor going, I think you need to be more explicit in step number 2 here. Like, we don't get to say, here's the formula, here's the science, and here's the science. And then, well, a miracle occurred. God must have done it. So this cartoon has been used to make fun of creationists because we are God of the gaps. Now, I am not a God of the gaps guy. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Here's my problem, though, in science, and what your book, The Stairway to Life, seems to show us is that evolution proposes a somehow of the gaps. So Kent, throw that other. I made this one. I was like, okay, well, if we got God of the gaps, if they're going to call us, God of the gaps people, well, then you are a somehow of the gaps. Kent, did you get the other one? No. Oh, that's a surprise, Kent. No, take that one off. Maybe you don't have it in there. The somehow of the gaps. Go back to my slide presentation and you'll find it. You can throw it up here in just a minute. But they seem to be like a somehow of the gaps people where, hey, somehow everything exploded into, nothing exploded and created everything. Somehow life evolved. Somehow life evolved into all the different varieties of life. So they're a somehow of the gap explanationist. And I thought, let's start going through some of their somehows. And then you list 13, right? 13 different steps to go from chemistry to life. Where do we need to jump off? And how do we talk about this stairway to life to show scientifically, look, this can't happen. We're not God of the gaps. We're God because it has to be God. It has to be an intelligent designer. Where should we jump off from?
Well, I can show the staircase to give a
yeah, please do. Pull that up.
But let me share. But the idea is, when we wrote this book, we thought, hey, we have to lay out all the requirements needed in order to start life. And it's a big sequence of requirements, and we thought it'd be helpful to organize it as staircase. Hope you can see that there.
I can, yep.
So you can see the staircase with all these required steps. And it was just helpful to organize. I like books that are well organized. And this helped to organize, all the requirements. You have to get through each of these in order to get from basic chemistry at the bottom of the staircase. You just have simple molecules. And then up at the top of the staircase, you have the very basic, most simple form of life possible to get life started. You have to meet all these requirements. And one hesitation we had in making it a staircase was that it might make it seem easy. You just do one step at a time, you get to the top. But in reality, all of these steps have to be met basically simultaneously. And so it's more of a cliff. In reality, it's much more of a cliff, but a staircase was more helpful to organize it.
Got it. But you're saying each one of these steps are individual. The way I described it, and Kent, if you could show my islands now, the one that you showed, I was like, okay, Dr. Rob, I want to give this to you. This is kind of the way I think of it because I heard you describe this and reading about it. It's like really each one of these steps is its own independent island, and there's no bridge connecting one island to another. There's no way to go from one to the other.
That's right. And,
okay.
And as we'll talk through step after step, we'll see that natural processes, just chemistry and physics doing what it does, naturally opposes the completion of the step.
So there's roadblocks at do not pass naturally at every single step.
And that's based on real science. It's not based on God of the gaps, like you said. It's real science pointing us to that.
Wow. Okay. Launch us here, and you guys give me a tag team on some of these different steps and what are the roadblocks? What are the naturalistic, scientific roadblocks from keeping these steps from happening?
May I add something before we go there?
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, in the book, we took a two-pronged approach. One is bottom up, from chemistry to life. Another is top down. How easy from whatever life we have, all the life forms we know on Earth now, right? From there to the chemistry, from life to destroy life to kill it, or what is necessary for life to survive or to reproduce for living things, right? So top down and bottom up is a kind of we're doing like a two-pronged approach, right? From both directions, life and the chemistry, and we converge.
So I like that. So with the bottom up approach, you're saying here's the roadblocks. With the top down, you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong here, you're saying it only works with the top down with a goal in mind, working down instead of accidentally getting this cell, this life that apparently forms with no purpose or no function. I mean, did I explain that? Did I understand that correctly?
Well, because when we are thinking about bottom up, we are living in an imaginary world. Nobody has ever done that, right? So we have to have a reality check with the life we know of. What is necessary for a life to take.
So from top down, the goal is to kind of dumb down life. You keep simplifying it, until you reach a limit. And that exercise has shown us that even the simplest possible life is actually quite extraordinarily complex, with at least 400 genes. And something like 90 of those genes, we still don't even know what they do, but they're essential and you better have them. So even the simplest life from top down is quite complicated.
So this was that would have been 2016 when they created the simplest cell, and were taking things out of it. And as soon as it died, they're like, "Oh, put that back in," and created the simplest cell. Even that, the simplest cell is too. So that's what you mean, top down. The simplest cell, is too complex.
Right.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, so right now we're talking about the bottom up approach to do the stairway.
Yep, and you have to do the top-down part to see what is the top of the stairway. What is the simplest possible form of life? You got to know where that boundary lies. And it's not exquisitely defined, but we're beginning to get a good picture of what that boundary is.
Okay. Oh, wow. All right. I'm already convinced this is impossible, but for those who are not convinced that life could have arisen all by itself and that is impossible, explain it.
You want to take that change?
No, I'll take it for you.
Well, as you can see here, we have the sequence of 12 steps. And of course, we don't have time to go through all of them. So maybe we can just pick a few that are, so they're all essential, but some that are maybe more interesting. And one that I find that a lot of people don't know about, but it's very interesting to talk through, is the necessity of a means for repairing the large molecules in a living thing, like your DNA, your RNA, your proteins. These things are falling apart constantly. And it's not just because you're getting old. It's because just sitting here with water surrounding these molecules in your body, they are getting torn apart, like 10,000 errors introduced per day per cell in your body. And so you couldn't stay alive unless you have built-in machines that go around and repair the DNA, the proteins in your body. And that's something that might surprise some people. And this leads to a really strong paradox, which we found almost on every step is a strong paradox, because the machinery that goes around fixing your DNA and repairing, which is essential, is itself encoded in the DNA, right? So the machinery has to be protected from errors, but the machinery's job is to fix errors. And so you can't have the chicken without the egg. You're stuck. And this has been known since like 1960 when Manfred Eigen proposed this as Eigen's paradox. Maybe it was 1971. But in the 55 years since then, no one has found or proposed any reasonable solution to that paradox, that you've got to have repair mechanisms from the beginning, or else you can't even begin to climb up the ladder.
So, and that is step number 8 that you're talking about right now, the means for repairing biopolymers.
That's right.
Is that the right one? So means of repairing. Step number 8, you've got a paradox. You built into the genes is the correction mechanism. Which one came first? Because if you didn't have the correction mechanism in the genetics, I got this right, 10,000 errors per cell per day, just based on everything, the water, the hydrolysis, the radiation from the sun, 10,000 errors being corrected every day per cell.
That's correct, yes.
So we would head downhill. We would fall down the ladder of life.
That's right.
Really, really fast without this.
Yeah, and that brings a nice analogy is that there is a force of gravity that's pulling all of us down this staircase. And I feel it more and more the older I get. But I mean, we're all headed down to dust, which is at the bottom of the staircase. And so how could anybody believe that just physics and chemistry pumped something up the staircase all the way to the top in order to get life started? It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. Okay. Hit us with another one. That was step number 8. And I know that was a quick summary of the paradox of step number 8. Hit us with another one real quick.
All right, Change. You want to take one?
Which one do you like, Change? Which one do you think is, okay, for me, it's...
For me,
chemist,
for me is the last one, coordinated cellular purpose. So we have been getting very excited at the very bottom of making building blocks, amino acids, sugar, those kind of things. Even that step, we're light years away from getting the raw material for the building blocks. Where even that step, seems the easiest. We're not there yet. But for me, it's okay, giving you everything, giving you all the molecules you want. All the molecules, big or small, including all the genes, all the DNAs, all the RNAs, and all the proteins.
You're too kind. You are way too kind. That's very nice of you to give all of that to them. You're just so nice.
Yeah, otherwise we always say, oh, look, we have made this, and tomorrow we have made that, right? Give you everything, give you all the material, all the molecules you have. If you do not have a matching or coordinated cellular purpose. For example, matching coding and decoding systems, and everything work together as a team for the same purpose, which is to be alive, to be able to stay alive, and maybe reproduce if possible, right? Give you everything. If that cannot be accomplished, life is impossible. So you can imagine, for example, we have a car accident every day outside, right? All our molecules are there. Maybe some of them are mislocalized. However, life is no more.
And I think to myself, my daughter called me the other day and said, Dad, I put my car in reverse, I backed up, I put it in drive, and it just won't go anywhere. And now the whole shifter, no matter what I do, I'm just stuck in reverse. And I went, let me come check it out. I ended up having to order one teeny tiny plastic piece, very small plastic piece, had to take apart her console there in the center, and one link that connected the cable going to the transmission to the shifter, one linkage bracket was broken. And that one broken linkage bracket made the entire car, all 4 wheels looked fine. They had the right air pressure. The engine ran fine. The spark plugs were working. It had fuel in it. Everything else was fine. One tiny plastic piece did not work, had broken. And the car it did not do its purpose at all. So you're saying, not only do we have to do these steps, and I'll give you all these steps, like the car has to have a purpose. The car has to be able to drive somebody somewhere. What's its purpose? And let alone the car has to replicate itself. The cell has to replicate itself. So you're going, there's no, once you get to the top, why?
Well, you know
And
what?
how?
Once the cars can replicate themselves, cars making cars, we will conclude evolution did it.
Yeah. And when Elon's robots start taking over, and then the robots start making more robots, we're going to say they evolved by themselves and Elon didn't make them. Yeah, exactly.
No intelligence required.
You're right.
So okay, Dr. Change, you were an atheist evolutionist. Would you say that was just because that's all you'd been taught? In other words, you were indoctrinated into believing these steps happened?
Yeah.
And was that indoctrinated out of, can I say, ignorance? It's like when you think of all these steps that you've thought of, you're no longer ignorant of them. And now that you're educated in them, you realize there must be an engineer who designed this. So were you educated out of ignorance, do you believe, or was there a different intent?
I don't know what is the intention. Is that the political? Is that the religious? I have no idea. Yeah, but we were told there was no God, no creator, no savior. Everything came from material thing. Everything is material, right?
And I guess that's where, if that's your starting point, you have to now make up a story that fits your starting point. So they have to say, okay, let me ask you this. You guys, this. How much time and energy and brain power and thinking power has been completely wasted looking for an explanation to explain a story that's not true?
Well, it's kind of what you're saying, Eric, is that if you're an atheist and you want to push God out of your life, you've got to, if you want to be rational, if you want to be considered a rational atheist, you've got to have an explanation for where the universe came from, where the first life came from, and then how that first life became so complicated as it is today. You need that as your foundation, these three pillars. And if one of those pillars cracks down and falls apart, then the whole edifice collapses. And you could probably still be an atheist, but not a rational atheist, right? It wouldn't be an atheist that people could say, oh, that makes sense. So you got to hold up all three of these pillars and fight for all your worth in order to keep them standing. And that's where so much energy and time, as you say, is put, is trying to keep these pillars upright, holding up the edifice so that you can push God out of your life.
Wow. You guys, I've only got about 2 minutes left here, and I want to take 57 seconds of it and show a clip of a video series that you guys have. Matter of fact, Dr. Stadler, can you go to, that slide's all the way at the end of your presentation, but if you don't mind just showing that slide real quick before we show this video. You've got an entire series on the origin of life, I believe. Yeah, there it is. This series, I got to tell you, well done, creative, educational, and I thought, oh, that is gold. Kent, can you just play real quick that little clip that I got out of that series?
Let's reveal criterion number 1. Are the scientists unbiased? If you were in a science fair and your mom was the judge, the other students might well be suspicious if you win the blue ribbon. Scientists are human and sometimes root for one particular outcome, and that can be bad. You did great, sweetie. But when they are so biased that they don't even consider other possible answers, that's really bad. And we shouldn't have particularly high confidence in their conclusions. Applying this to the origin of life, what did these scientists do? Remember, the origin of life question only has 2 possible answers. These scientists start by completely excluding the second possibility, and then act as if they aren't biased. But shouldn't we remain open to consider... Quiet! Excluding one of the 2 possible explanations before the research even begins is the ultimate form of bias.
Guys, sometimes problems get easier the longer we study them, and then there are problems that seem to do the exact opposite. Every new discovery doesn't simplify the mystery, it reveals another layer that has to be explained. And the origin of life seems to be one of those major problems for science. That's what makes this kind of conversation with Dr. Change and Dr. Rob so fascinating. They're willing to look at the science, the evidence, and we only got into 2 little bitty pieces. I got to get into more with them here in just a second. But these evidences, these paradoxes at every single level challenge us to stop and think about the origin of life. It had to be intelligently designed. It had to be. No matter which branch you choose, and they talk about this in their book, whether it's the bottom up or the top down, you have to understand top down to know what the cell is made for, like what is it going to do? And then you have to go bottom up to be able to create it. and there's just no possible way. And every time scientists uncover another layer of complexity, it seems they're discovering another step that also has to be explained. So why are so many people, convinced that we have reached the top, that this is not a problem? I would think that it is a willful ignorance. See, the problem is that evolutionists have become so committed to finding a natural explanation, many never stop to ask whether the evidence is pointing somewhere else entirely. And when we see the information, when we see the planning, when you look at the engineering, we naturally conclude there was an intelligence behind it. Yet we encounter the most sophisticated information processing system we've ever discovered, the living cell, and we're told to believe no intelligence was involved, no intelligence allowed. Guys, I would like you to do a couple things as we end here today for you. If you'd like to learn more, make sure and check out Dr. Change and Dr. Rob and get their book, The Stairway to Life, okay? An Origin of Life Reality Check, because it just couldn't happen. It's a great resource for digging deeper into the science and the scientific challenges surrounding the origin of life problems. Also, head to their let me pull it up here. What's that YouTube channel? We'll have it on the screen here. But head to Long Story Short videos on YouTube, Long Story Short videos, to go through the origin of life, because the animations that they've done there are great for teaching tools for you, your children, your grandchildren, no matter where you're at. Obviously, you can see they're funny and entertaining. You can also head to creationtoday.org. Come on over to our website and partner with us to share the gospel around the world. And what we do for our partners is we give them access to everything we do. So you can have access to the rest of this conversation, as well as any of the other almost now 500 conversations on science and the Bible, how we bring together God's word and God's world. Listen, if you're a skeptic today, I hope you'll listen to this carefully. I hope you'll get the book. I hope you'll go on YouTube and watch Long Story Short videos, because there is no mechanism scientifically to go up the stairway. And there are lots of scientific discoveries that show us having to go down the stairway. It's impossible. You can't get up. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share this with somebody. If you know a skeptic, please send this conversation to them and say, hey, I'd love to get your thoughts. Watch this and let's talk about it. Hey, the other thing you can do is support the mission. Man, you can support ministries like Creation Today or other ministries trying to make this happen. And you can do that for us at creationtoday.org/partner, or get involved with another organization that is trying to declare the truth, because the reality is God created the heavens and the earth. I was thinking about it like this. We are one creation with one problem and one solution. Our problem is sin. The solution is Jesus. If you haven't heard about that, or if you want to know more about that, please go to creationtoday.org/gift, G-I-F-T. It's the greatest news you'll ever hear. Hey, next week, we're joined right here by our very own Rachel Mims. We're going to take you behind the scenes into last semester when we went to college campuses, and we're going to have a lot of fun working through some of the conversations we had with students when we did our campus dialogue events. You're going to love it. These are not staged presentations. These are unscripted, genuine conversations where Christianity has to answer the toughest questions. So come on over and join us next week. Until then, go share the gospel with somebody who needs to hear it. Okay, I just got my partners with me now, Dr. Change and Dr.